Hey guys, Shane here. So welcome to this inbox review of Tamiya's 135th German Panther Type G Late version. So this is one of the classic Tamiya kits from the early 90s. In this case, this kit was released in 1994, so when I was 4 years old. And for most of us, especially any of us who were born in the late 80s, early 90s, these kits have a very special place, as these are like the classic kits for my generation of modelers. And it marks the next generation of Tamiya kits when they began to update their molds and I believe use computer aided design in their tooling for their molds and what have you. So this is when their kits really became what we know and love today. Like, no, even back in the 70s, their kits were quite good, but this is when they really became the juggernaut that we all know and love today. So this is their rubber road wheel style of Panther. They do have the steel road wheel version as well. And the only real difference with that kit is there's an extra sprue thrown into this box with the steel road wheels, and I believe there might be another sprue with the infrared night fighting rig. So there's not that many differences in both kits, and I believe if you buy the steel wheel, you do get the rubber road wheels too. So perhaps buying the steel wheel will give you more options if you just wanted to build a Panther and weren't really looking for anything in particular. So I picked this kit up for relatively cheap. I got it for about 30 quid, and I'm quite looking forward to building this. As these kits, as we all know, Tamiya kits are supremely well engineered, so an intermediate modeler or an advanced modeler can get a lot out of these builds. So if you only built a few 1/35 scale kits before, or any model kit, you could pick up a Tamiya kit and build it and get a reasonably nice model, and more importantly, you will actually enjoy building these as they're supremely well engineered and they're very user friendly. And then for the more advanced modeler, these are wonderful base kits if you want to try working with photo etch or resin, or even if you want to try your hands if you're feeling fancy with a bit of scratch building. Tamiya kits are fantastic core or base kits to try upgrade work on, and that's why I'm hoping to do with this kit. So I bought this for a purpose, one, because I like the Panther, and two, I've always wanted to model a knocked out vehicle, and I'm going to knock out this Panther in a later series, as well as try my hand at doing a little bit more photo etch work, as since this kit's been out for the better part of 23 years, there is ample aftermarket photo etch resin upgrades for this kit available, so you can do a lot with it and you're going to be spoiled for choice. So with that said, let's start having a look and see what we get in the box. As always, we get this really attractive Tamiya style box art. I do like their box arts on some kits more than others, but this one's actually quite striking with the rear view of the Panther, with these two crewmen looking kind of skyward to see what type of aircraft are there. And we do actually get these two crewmen, they're pretty nice in their own right. You know, Tamiya figures are a bit rough, but we'll have a proper look at those in a minute. On the side, we have our marking options. We have the soft edge tritonal camo, which is depicted on the box art, which is the version I'll probably go for because it is very striking. We have another kind of harder tone camo scheme here, again tritonal, as well as here. Nothing on the back, and that's very, as we'd come to expect, very standard stuff from Tamiya. This is very much their standard operating procedure when it comes to displaying and packaging model kits. So cracking open the box, we are met with our Tamiya instructions, which we'll have a proper look at the moment. Again, these are super crystal clear, some of the best instructions in the market for any of you who have not built a Tamiya kit. We also have this standalone page that gives us some painting guides for the crewmen, as well as if we want to build this as a command vehicle, where to place the extra radio antennas, as well as a marking option for one of the vehicles. Then we are met with bags of tan plastic in the very crisp Tamiya way. And bear in mind, this kit's over 20 years old and it still holds up immensely well. So, that said, let's actually have a look-see and see what type of quality we get in this kit. So starting with the instructions, we have a actual photograph of the built up and painted model, which is something you don't really get today in modern kits. It's only a CGE or a computer generated drawing of the kit. We get some basic history. Again, it's the Panther. I'm sure most of you are familiar with its development, and we're not going to really waste too much time. As always, we start on the lower hull, which is detailed. We do have various different plugs and access panels molded into the lower hull if you actually. Then we're moving on to our running gear. Again, everything is crystal clear. These instructions will not lead you astray. Moving on to our final drives, our jack. Then we're moving on to the wheels. Again, these are very well labelled and numbered, so they will not confuse you. But again, do pay attention if you're not used to building the multi-tiered German suspension. But again, you'll work it out, it's not too difficult. Then we're adding our exhaust system here, as well as the large iconic bins on the back of the tank. Then we're moving on to the upper hulls. We're adding the periscope for our driver and co-driver, as well as some interior detail for their hatches. By step 8, we're already moving into the upper hull, so this build will move very, very quick. Step 8, we're adding the gun cleaning case for the rods that go onto the side of the tank. Some Panthers put this across the engine deck, so whatever, you can do a little bit of research if you want to mix and match to a particular unit. Then we have our tool rack here, as well as our Bosch light. Then we're adding upper and lower hull. Again, this should not give us any issues. This will go together really well. Some kits, mounting the upper and lower can sometimes give you gaps. With a Tamiya kit, you really don't have to worry about it. So moving on to step 10, we're adding the gun cleaning case here for the rods, the racks for the tools, as well as the gun carry lock or the travel lock for the gun barrel. So again, it's very quick, not too much going on in these steps, more tools and Pioneer tools. Then we're adding some details to the rear engine deck, as well as the hangers for the spare tracks. We are given a small amount of copper wire here for this spool of wire, which is included in the kit, which is nice. Then we're moving on to the support rails for the Shorsen plates. The ironic thing about the Panther was the side armour, especially underneath the main sponson, was actually immensely thin, and they found during Kursk and other engagements very early on that even the Soviet anti-tank rifles could penetrate the side of the tank, so they added these Shorsen plates to defend against that, and they were very successful in stopping that. But it goes to show you that head-on a Panther's very steep glacis plate could take most hits. Once you got around the side of it, it was in deep trouble, and a good example of that is when the lowly Sherman annihilated an entire Panther brigade at Araucourt. Something we don't hear about often, but well worth looking into if you want to see what happens when the Germans go on the offensive. Just like anyone else, when you're attacking a prepared position, things go wrong. So we're adding the armoured loops for the grills. Now, no photo etch is included in this kit, but Tamiya do make their own photo etch grills for the Panther, so you can pick them up relatively cheaply. Sometimes they can be a bit pricey, or you just go on to Eduard or whatever and buy an aftermarket set with all those parts. We do have a basic gun breech here, so if you do have the rear hatch or the commander's cupola open, you do have a little bit of detail. I'm not sure how much you're going to see in that, but still, it's nice that it's there. It'd be pretty basic, but it was more than adequate for the time and still stands up pretty well today. Step 15, we're adding the cupola, we're adding the gun breech into the turret, as well as the ventilator. Step 16, again, some more details, adding the rear plate to the turret, the escape hatch, which can be modelled to open or shut, as well as the gun mantlet as well. 17, we have a 2-part barrel. Again, very, very easy to get an aluminium or brass replacement gun barrel for that if you want. Step 18, we have the shield for the rotor of the gun turret to protect anything from entering and seizing up the elevation or depression of the gun, I believe. We're adding the ring mount for the machine gun on the mantlet, as well as some periscope covers and lifting eyes. We also have a MG34 self-defense machine gun for AA work, and if I believe correctly, the resin company Redu miniatures. They actually have, based on an actual Panther photograph of the crew using this to try to shoot down Allied aircraft, I believe from Normandy or France. So that could be cool to try to recreate that scene with this kit. And then step 19 is the final step. We're adding the turret, we're adding some of the tracks to the turret, as well as an antenna, which is just made out of stretch sprue. And stretch sprue works very well for German antennas anyway. And that is our instruction manual, very quick and very, very clear. Then we get our marking options here. We have a vehicle, a Panther from the 9th Panzer Division, Tank 301, which is the vehicle that is that's shown in the box here. That's kind of a basic ambush pattern, which is really attractive. I think I'm going to make this vehicle myself. I don't really care if it's accurate or not, it's striking. And then on the back we have how to make the antennas for the command vehicle, how to do the star antennas, and the placement for the radio pot and the second radio for the third roof if you want to make a command vehicle. And then we have some assembly and marking guides for the two crewmen. So looking at the plastic, most of the parts are bagged either individually or with a set of 2 or 3 sprues in one bag. They are stapled closed. I know some people don't like that. I couldn't care less. I've never had any damage with this before, so I don't really know what people are bitching about. So we'll have a look at the upper hull first. Quite actually immense, as you can see here. Detail, as you would expect from Tamiya, is immensely crisp, really nicely defined bolts and rivet details. And for a kit of its age, this holds up really, really well. We have molded on front fenders, which you could remove and replace with photo etch if you so wished. We have our driver's fixed periscope. I'm not entirely sure if that could rotate in real life. Again, I'm not too savvy on Panther details, but just to show you the size of Panther. And as you can see, the Panther is quite a little bit bigger than Sherman. However, Sherman was much taller, or at least comparably the same height as each other, so it goes to show you. However, the Panther was quite ahead of its time, and it also has a very futuristic look. It almost looks a little bit like a main battle tank, where main battle tanks get their inspiration from. We also have lots of cheat marks here to mount our tools and the rails for the shorten plates. Again, very impressive, nice detail. Nice weld marks here for the interlocking plates for the glacis plate here. It's very well done. I imagine this kit must have created quite a stir when it was released back in the early 90s. Moving on to the lower hull tub, again it's quite a large piece of tan plastic. Again, it's copyrighted 1993 Tamiya, as well as this moulding number. So we do have basic detail on the underside if you want to model this thing on its side or whatever. I personally don't really care because you can't see it, but still it's good that it's there, and it's nice that it's there on a kit of its age. Again, really crisp detail on our bump stops and the actual mounting points for the torsion bars. Nice and simple, but pretty nice. I don't think it's warped particularly badly either, which is always the tricky thing with a kit of its size. Yeah, so they go together very well. I'm not seeing much warping. I probably imagine I'm going to have to remove these 2 large tabs here to get it to fit, but we'll see when we come to build it. Moving on to our larger bags of sprues now. So this is the bag that contains our turret details as well as some of the spare track links. Track links in this kit are rubber band. However, Tamiya does sell a workable set of individual linked tracks with with solid spokes, I believe, or teeth. Don't know how accurate that is. Again, I'm not really too big on my Panther knowledge. So we have our sprue of track links. They're pretty nice. You know, they're simple. They're track links. We've seen them all before. And then we come on to this larger sprue. This is Disfrute. This has all our turret details. So we have our 2-piece main gun here. Again, the detail on it is quite nice. It's quite sharp in places, but unfortunately it's a two-piece barrel. So unless you're very good at replacing seam lines, you're going to probably have to buy an upgrade barrel if you so wish. We have some grab handles here. They are a little bit thick, but again, they're not very difficult to replace with brass wire if you so wish. Then we move on to the Commander's cupola. That's actually pretty nice because these were cast on the real vehicle, and there is actually a pretty noticeable cast texture placed onto it. That is really nice. I'm happy they did that. We have our Commander's seat here again, just if you want to put your figure in, you have something to stand on. We have the gun shield here for the recoil of the main gun for the basic breech detail. Our turret floor, the rotor shield for the actual elevation of the gun, and then this large piece here, which probably is a bit overscaled, and this is the ring for the AA mount for the MG34 on the cupola. Also, the hatch for the Commander is actually quite nice. Again, a really nice cast texture on that. And then we move on to the actual upper, or the turret itself, which for the most part is one piece. It's quite nice. Again, some nice weld details and very finely picked out rivets. Again, these things are quite simple. They're just welded together, big blocks of steel, of homogeneously rolled steel. Then we have the rear plate of the turret, which is where the escape hatch is. And we have some of the basic locating marks to put the mechanism for that hatch. Then we have a very basic gun breech assembly here. It's quite simple. However, looking through the hatch, it will at least give you something to work with, if you so wish. Then we have some more of the recoil guard system again for the gun breech. Then we have a closed self-defense point here that fits onto top of the turret. It is modeled closed, however it's not really a biggie. And again, some nice rivet detail on that. So then we're moving on to C-Sprue, which is another large sprue that has quite a bit of parts crammed into it. So we have our large exhaust turbines, or mufflers should I say, and the actual exhaust themselves. These are pretty nice considering their age. I'm sure the Dragon ones are far nicer, but you know, with a little bit of work this would be okay. Then we had the gun mantlet itself. If I recall correctly, I believe these are cast. They certainly look like a cast piece of equipment. So I'd imagine you'd have to add a little bit of a cast texture to this just to make it look a bit more realistic. Then we move on to the large, I believe this is for the heater, the engine heater I think. And we actually have a really nice numbering on the back of this unit here, which is really cool. Then we have the fan, or the top plate for that, or the top piece here. The star here, that's nice. Then we have some of the parts for the command version. So we have our radio pot for the rear engine deck, and then the small radio mount for the turret roof, which is nice. So you do have options. You want to make a command vehicle or a Befehl's Panther. We have a pair of Panzer Crewmen's headphones, you know, for the intercom system of the tank. These are very thick and out of scale, but again, photo etch parts are available out there if you so want to use them. We have our Bosch light and some of the tools. Again, these are pretty basic, and I'm sure there's plenty of resin updates for the tools if you want to use those instead. We have our travel lock on the gun, which is pretty nice, as well as these plates here for the grills. Then we have the hull plates are for the final drives. These are pretty nice, some nice little rivet detail on those. And then the final drives themselves, which do have some nice bolt detail. We have a two-piece part here for our case for the barrel cleaning rods. And then we have the racks here for the tools. The tools don't look half bad, you know. Like the clasps are just basically squares of plastic molded on, so they don't really look like realistic tool clasps in the slightest. But hey, you know, they're grand if you don't want to fiddle with photo etch, you know. Just be aware of them. Then we have our tow cables, which are just one big long piece of plastic. Again, steel tow cables are available online. I think Eureka has quite a few for the Panther. And then we have our Shoresman plates, which are numbered, so you won't confuse them. Now they are quite thick, so you might want to take maybe a rotor tool and actually just trim these down, or you can cut them up and remove them. Again, these are quite easily found in photo etch sets anyway, so you'll very easily replace them. Same here with the large bins on the rear of the vehicle. They're actually quite nice. I imagine, yeah, so you can't model these open or shut, they can only be modeled closed, and if you did, they'd be too thick anyway, and you can't really damage them unless you actually like bore into the plastic to create dents. But once again, these are available both in resin and photo etch from different manufacturers. We have our driver, co-driver hatches here with some basic detail on the inner face. We do have some little pin marks that have to be filled if you want to model them open. Then we have the engine access hatch. Again, some pin marks or punch marks that have to be filled, as there is an engine that Tamiya makes that is available for this kit and the Tiger. I'm not sure how well accurate it is, but it's there if you want it. Then we have our bow machine gun mount here, the ball mount. Again, there's a very light cast texture on this. If you want to add to your own, it wouldn't hurt in the slightest. I might actually add a slight cast texture to that. It's a bit too light for me. Then we have the hood for the driver's periscope here, as well as the barrel for the MG34 self-defense machine gun. We have parts of the jack. Jack is pretty basic. There's nothing too crazy to it. Again, not as nice as the modern Dragon ones out there. Then with the rear engine deck itself, and you will notice there is no there is no Simrit on any of these parts. So if you're going to have to add Simrit to your Panther, you're going to probably have to either do a putty or buy resin or photo etch upgrades to do the Simrit. I think Tamiya does do the Decal Simrit for this kit. I know they have it for other tanks. I'm not sure they have it for their Panther. I'd be very surprised if they didn't. Then we have the wooden block here for the jack. Again, some basic wooden grain detail molded on. It's just a block of plastic really, but again, I'm sure there's an upgrade set out there for it. So that's the big sprues of most of the parts. And then we just have a single bag with two sprues, which is our running gear. And this is basically all of the swing arms and sprockets and road wheels, as well as the hangers for the spare tracks on the rear of the Panther. So the road wheels are actually quite nice. So we do have some lovely rivet detail and bolt detail on these. It's very crisp. Now we do have a rather hefty seam that runs along the edges of the wheels that'll have to be gently sanded back, being very careful not to flatten the wheels by mistake. Then we have our drive sprockets. Again, really nice, lovely bolt detail on those. Again, really crisp, very well laid out and very well defined. We have our towing bar. I can never remember the name of this. Basically, just link your towing cables together if you want to pull out a vehicle. We have some of our tow hitches here, or tow bars. We also have I believe the earlier version of exhaust and muffler. Again, the plastic is quite thick. They have chamfered it in to make it look a little bit more on scale, but you probably have to come in with a Dremel or a power tool and do a bit more work on it. We do have the hangers for the tracks on the rear of the engine deck. Now there are some small pin marks you're going to have to fill. Shouldn't be too difficult. Just get a little bit of acrylic putty and then trim it back with your hobby blade and that'll do the job. Then we have our very large swing arms here. Again, the detail is okay on them. You're not going to see them once the wheels are in place anyway. And then we have our hatches for the doors for the actual rear stowage bins. Again, these can only really be modelled shut anyway. We have some grab handles and lifting eyes. These seem a bit more on scale, so it's not too bad. and we get 2 of those sprues. And the final sprue we get is for the Crewmen, which I'll take us in and have a proper look at. Because Dragon, or should I say Tamiya sprues, or Tamiya figures can be a bit dodgy. So we'll start with the Commander, who looks like a goblin. He has no neck whatsoever. God, that's such a weird looking figure. That's so bizarre. Uniform detail is kind of okay. You know, this would have been acceptable in the early 90s, but that is a really, really bizarre looking sculpt. Oh, Jesus. His head seems overscaled yet underscaled because he has no neck. Again, there's a really large seam line that'll have to be removed. I know he's meant to be like looking up and kind of kneeling back, but it's just really awkward the way that's done. However, the loader model is actually really nicely done. So he's wearing like those kind of tanker dungarees that they used to wear. So that's his torso. That's his torso. We have like an iron cross molded on. I believe that's an iron cross second class, if I remember correctly, or first class. It's a bit overscaled, but if any of you got the Dragon Gen 2 figure sets out there, it's not hard to cut that off and put a photo etch iron cross there instead. However, the face on them is quite nice. So that's not bad for a Tamiya set. I would replace this one with another guy, but again, there's so many resin aftermarket German Panzer crew out there, so you'll have no difficulty finding replacements for these guys. These are your standard like rubber band tracks, not going to waste too much time on them. Solid road wheels, or sorry, should I say solid guide horns. Again, I'm not sure how accurate that's meant to be. I'm not sure if the guide horns on a Panther are solid or hollow. Don't really care, but I'm sure a quick Google search. They also seem to have been burnt on my example here. Yeah, that's burning marks. I have no clue what the story is there. But I'm not going to be using these. I'm just going to be replacing these with individual Lincoln Lent tracks, or Indie Link tracks, should I say. Yeah, these have been burned. I'm not entirely sure what the story is there. And then we get a small bag of parts here. So we get our copper wire, which is for the spool on the side of the vehicle. We get this large bolt. I have no clue what the hell that's for. I must have missed it on the instructions. And 4 poly caps for our sprockets and idlers. Again, very standard Tamiya stuff. And then finally we have our decals. So the decals, or decals, or the hell you want to call them, I don't care. So we have our 302, 301 and 413 tactical numbering. We do have our Balkenkreuz here, or Balkenkreuz, as well as 2 kill markings. I believe one for a Sherman Firefly by the looks of it, and one for a T-34 85. From what I understand is, and like from my own experiences too, Tamiya decals can be very hit and miss. They can hold up really, really well, or they can just disintegrate the minute you try to manipulate them with certain solutions. So rule of thumb with Tamiya decals is be gentle with them and be kind of patient. These can be very fragile. Just always presume that they're fragile and they're just waiting to disintegrate on you. And with that, that is all the contents of the box. So there you have my inbox review of Tamiya's Panther Type G Late version with the rubber road wheels. So in all, this is a really nice kit considering its age. It does need to have a few upgrades here and there, particularly in the tracks and barrel and photo etch grills. These can all be bought from Tamiya directly, or you can just buy them from other aftermarket kits. You have plenty of options when dealing with these kits. And in all, these are very fun and enjoyable kits to put together, and by far for me that's the most important aspect. I don't want a kit that could be really, really accurate but is an absolute bastard to put together to the point of it makes you ask, why am I in this hobby in the first place? Because it's meant to be fun. And these kits are great fun, and if you can get your hands on them, I would really recommend. So guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Do join me when I have some more painting and build videos coming up in the very near future, as well as the well and long awaited video on my Fury build. The kit is the same kit that Evan or Panzermeister 36 built and did a really good job on. It is a pig of a kit. It's not. I thought it was going to be the same base kit as, or should I say, Dragon's Thunderbolt 7 kit. It's not. It's this bloody Frankenstein horror of a model, and I'm slowly getting there. It's just it's fighting me, and it's kind of not fun to work on for any length of time. So that's going to take a little bit of time, but I'm sure I'll have it done before the summer's out. So thanks very much for watching, guys. Stay tuned for those videos. Again, big thank you to my Patreons and my supporters and viewers. You're all great, guys. Keep doing what you're doing, and if you want to support the channel, do consider joining Patreon. I will start having goodies and gifts and like prizes for Patreons in the future. I'm slowly working my way up to that. So guys, thank you so much. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Happy modeling, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye bye.